Despite the movie's marketing campaign, Zootropolis, known as Zootopia outside of Europe due to copyright issues, isn't dealing with an incredibly original concept: anthropomorphic animals. The tagline, "like nothing you've seen before," kinda feels illegitimate because we've been watching domesticated, civilized animals in animated form since animated movies even began, with Walt Disney Animation being the pioneer for this type of storytelling. However, where Zootropolis seems to stand out is that it's taking the variety of scales and sizes that come with the animal kingdom and fully realizing it. What would it look like if a city was co-inhabited by creatures as large as elephants and as small as mice? Walt Disney Animation hoped to portray this world as they enter something akin to a second renaissance after the success of The Princess and the Frog, Tangled, Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen, and Big Hero 6, especially since Disney's acquisition of Pixar Animation has resulted in more collaboration between the once rivals. We have the director of Bolt and Tangled with the director of Wreck-It Ralph collaborating for Zootropolis, but is this a wonderful union similar to that depicted in the movie between predator and prey, or is this a strenuous relationship between cultures that is more or less like the actual world that we live in? In terms of the story's broad strokes, Zootropolis is working from a pretty well-worn template. The movie hits the exact beats and highs and lows that you'd expect, the mystery angle isn't particularly compelling, and many of the twists and turns can be seen coming from a mile away. However, what holds Zootropolis together is its terrific world building and storytelling to introduce audiences to this unique world, because while walking, talking animals is hardly new, seeing the mechanics of them coexisting and how the architecture of buildings and vehicles have to accommodate them is a sight to behold. One of the standout sequences of the movie has Judy Hopps board a train to Zootropolis, and she, and by proxy the audience, is given a tour of the animal haven as the train ride takes her through the polar district where the roads are replaced by small rivers and animals ride ice blocks to get around, and how next door is a savanna region and then there's a jungle area full of tree huts and vines to swing on. These aren't just different climates thrown together either, they feel like places that can be inhabited by domestic civilized animals, and they feel cohesive yet distinct. On the aforementioned train journey we see that there are different doors for different sized animals to walk through. We see drink vendors with pipes pointing upwards so they can serve much taller animals, and rodents have their own micro cities and towns to live in, lest they get trampled on by bigger mammals. But this isn't just an inventive world that is the key showcase of Zootropolis, but it's also the themes it portrays about tolerance and acceptance of those who are different. It's a very of-the-moment movie in a time of civil unrest, racism, Islamophobia, etc., where people are afraid and they're turning on each other, where a minority of a minority are causing tensions to run high, and as a result there's a sense of paranoia. And in Zootropolis, the city, it's the relationship between prey and predator, where it's believed that the predators are starting to revert back to their primal urges, which puts the innocent prey, the majority, in danger. And at their lowest point later on in the movie, we get an incredibly familiar scenario play out, where there's violence at a peaceful protest, and a sheep says to a cheetah, "Go back to the jungle," to which the cheetah responds, "I'm from the savannah." While the obligatory third act separation from our heroes Judy and Nick is as predictable as it is contrived, it's hard to overlook that when we get a shot of parents trying to get their children as far away from an innocent predator on public transport as possible. An all too common real world parallel. Fear always works, says one character towards the end of the movie. But going back to the main relationship between Judy and Nick, while it does start off in an unexpected way, it does end up hitting the same beats you'd expect as they continue to one-up each other and try to trick the other into helping their own personal goals. But it's the finer details in the social allegory where the movie finds its heart. Judy is an idealistic small-town bunny who has had a bad relationship with foxes in the past, but she still gives Nick the benefit of the doubt during her first meeting, only to have her prejudices justified, which helps give the moral a bit more credence and shades of grey. However, when Nick's backstory is ultimately revealed, it goes even deeper into the type of impact being on the receiving end of those prejudices can have on someone, because while the backstory itself isn't breaking new ground, the way Nick responds to it and the lessons he learns from that feel wholly unique and incredibly mature. And the relationship between Judy and Nick does feel credible thanks to some very entertaining and honest character beats. These are two very appealing characters, the two play off each other really well, and it's refreshing that these two are allowed to just be work partners and friends as opposed to a romantic couple. In fact, Judy Hopps doesn't have any explicit interest in romance in general in the movie. Instead, her goal is to be a real police officer and to make a difference. This makes it all the more enjoyable when she's given parking duty and decides to make the best of the situation before being worn down by citizens who are angry at all the tickets she has given out. Although why her boss insists that she resign should she not complete the missing mammals case in 48 hours is never quite explained, even though he's straight up asked by Nick at one point. A lot of the heart in the movie comes from the brilliant vocal performances, with Jennifer Goodwin able to imbue Judy with a do-gooder attitude without becoming grating. Jason Bateman is terrific as Nick, demonstrating impeccable range, and the rest of the cast do great work like Idris Elba, Jenny Slate and Nate Torrance. J.K. Simmons, Alan Tudyk and Octavia Spencer are good in their roles, but they're so minor that they feel like stunt casting, though the most blatantly pandering casting choice is Shakira, who voices the Gazelle pop star Gazelle. She performs a pop song for the soundtrack and a montage early on in the movie, but then she gets shoehorned into the film later on and performs the exact same pop song at the very end of the film. Most animated films get pop songs made for commercial purposes, but Shakira's inclusion in Zootropolis comes across as exceptionally pandering. The issue with Zootropolis, however, is that while there is clearly a lot of imagination on display and it's a thoughtfully designed world, we never actually get that good a look at it. Despite the train ride early on giving the audience a brief insight into how this world operates, once that train ride is over, we're stuck with generic looking buildings, streets, offices and vehicles. Obviously the charm of the movie comes from seeing these civilized animals in domestic environments and using 2016 technology, but when we see Arctic animals have their own unique form of transportation early on, it feels inconsistent for those exact same animals to be seen driving around generic cars later on in the film, despite the audiences seeing that is not how they normally get around. To make up for stuff like that, we're at least treated to a gorgeously animated movie with bright colours, varied animals that are brimming with personality, and effective visual humour and slapstick. The sequence involving sloths at the DMV and how they seem to move in slow motion compared to the rest of the world is such a hysterical comic set piece, and later on in the movie, we even have something approaching a Breaking Bad parody. Despite anthropomorphic animals hardly being new, seeing this world portrayed with sizes in mind makes Zootropolis feel distinct and original. Musically, Michael Giacchino's score doesn't leave much of an impression, unfortunately. So after all of that, here's my conclusion. Zootropolis has flashes of true originality and ingenuity, and its heart is earnestly in the right place in regards to holding a colourful mirror up to the audience when it comes to topical issues of prejudice, racism and acceptance. However, that makes the glaring unoriginality of its mystery subplot and predictable character beats all the more noticeable, and despite the racism overtones making for compelling viewing, the directions the story takes in the third act serves to undermine the real-world parallels in a way that does feel like a cop-out. Still, the end result is a very enjoyable, funny and heartfelt animated film that is brimming with visual flourishes and engaging characters. Let's just hope we get to see more of Zootropolis next time audiences visit it. I give Zootropolis 3.5 stars out of 5.
I have 36 hours left. We can only solve it together.
It's not about how badly you want something, it's about what you are capable of.
I am a real cop.
Never let them see that they get to you bunnies. So emotional.
Hello everyone, thanks for listening to my review. You can find these reviews a day or two early on my website, www.trilbee.com, so be sure to visit there where you can find a written version and other written content. But more importantly, what did you think of the film? Be sure to let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to subscribe for more movie related analysis. Be sure to hit that like button because that really helps me out, and you can support my content through Patreon and also get your name in the credits with these other lovely people and get exclusive perks and updates. I'll see you folks next time.